So, why am I here today? I've been a dietitian for 24 years, and that emoji shows how I cannot even believe it. Because I've never done anything for 24 years. I've never been committed for it, well, except my marriage, 28 years and counting. And so 24 years, that just astonishes me as well. But anyway, I work at Iowa State University in the internship program, but I'm here today on behalf of the Iowa Academy, actually, because we have created a speakers bureau. And so this is my little plug for all of you. We started out as a task force establishing relationships with other healthcare professionals. And the goal of that task force was to get the dietitian out there, collaborating with other professionals to let them know, hey, this is what we do, this is what we can offer you, okay? And so if you're interested in collaborating with other healthcare professionals, just email me and I can get you on the list. So far the past couple of years, we've worked mostly with nurses, nurse practitioners, physical therapists, athletic trainers, but and also other registered dietitians as well. So the sky's the limit. And then also, just wanted to let you know, I am restarting my consulting business, but under a different name this time, and it kind of goes with what I'll be talking about today, and it's redefining health, nutrition for all bodies. And before I used to do mostly just one-on-one consultations, that sort of thing, but I'm interested now in doing presentations and trainings with other healthcare professionals. And my advanced areas of practice are intuitive eating, and then also just completed a training called Craving Change, which is cognitive behavior therapy specific just to nutrition. And then also other areas, eating disorders, and then health at every size, which we'll talk about today. Non-diet or weight neutral approaches, and then also body respect and body acceptance. So this leads right into what Christina was talking about, her story. Well, this is my story. Why am I so passionate about this? Well, of course I'm passionate about it because I'm a registered dietitian, and I always knew as I was going through school, you know, you learn about eat this, don't eat that, that sort of thing. But then it was when I had my first baby, actually in grad school, 21 and a half years ago. And I looked at this baby, and she'd probably kill me if she knows how the story. Looked at this beautiful baby. She had rolls upon rolls, and she was so cute and so chunky. And then it hit me. One day she's gonna grow up hating her body. And with the struggles that I went through and the struggles that many of us have gone through, I didn't want that to happen to my little girl. And then I had another little girl 3 years later, and so I made it part of my mission to create an environment for them of body positivity and acceptance, and it kind of just grew from there. When someone finds out that you like to present, you're in the school all the time, and that's how it is when you volunteer. You volunteer once and then you're volunteering for everything, right? And so started going into the schools and then into the community, and then it really, it's part of my job. This is my message that many of these students up here have heard before in the undergrad, and then it's also a message that I teach the interns as well. But it went from the whole body acceptance, body positivity into intuitive eating, which was a life-changing book for me, life-changing book for others as well. And so this is happening over several years, mind you. And then I got into health at every size. What is that? It's so misunderstood, and many dietitians misunderstand it. So I'm going to talk about that later. And then the most recently, I would say probably the last couple of years, I really dug into weight stigma and what that means and what have I done? And I have done things, have said things that contribute to weight stigma. What has our profession done? What have other healthcare professions done? So I have been speaking a lot about weight stigma. I am not an expert, but I do know this, that it's harmful. And I also know that we can do things to prevent the harm. And it's a social injustice issue. So you might say, well, it's not my job to do anything about it. Actually, it is your job to do something about it. And also, I'm going to say some things today that you might feel uncomfortable about, and you might want to jump on your chair and debate with me, and that's okay. I lit a fire then. Let's talk about this. We might not have time because I only have an hour and 15 minutes, but I'll be here today and tomorrow. But what I want you to do is think of this as another approach, another alternative. What if we didn't have to do weight loss diets, okay? What if there's other things coming in to the mix? And if you can't get past that, or if you feel uncomfortable and you just really think, well, she doesn't even know what she's talking about, just try to look through it through a different lens. And because we all have implicit bias, and that might be clouding some of it too, but I'll present you with the research as well. I'm not going to go into great detail about the research just because I don't have time, but I have lots of resources for you. And the plan for today is to give you activities you can use right from here. You can take them and use them with your clients. And lots of resources. And so I have way more slides than I can ever possibly go through, and I tried to cut them down, and I cut them down, and I whittled them down. But I'm a storyteller, and so I don't know how many stories I'm going to tell throughout this presentation. And so then I always run out of time. So that's why I wanted you to have the complete set so you can go back and look through them and look for the resources and read more into it. Okay, so basically, these 6 things sum up my presentation. Diets don't work. There are no good food or bad foods. Exercise should be fun. Size is not an indicator of health. Losing weight is rarely the answer, and all bodies deserve respect. So I don't even have to tell you the objectives, plus they're in your agenda. So first, what I want you to do is, how many conferences do we go to where we're like, oh my gosh, this is so good, we're taking notes like crazy on the slides, and then they stay in that same bag and you never pull them out again? I know what it's like. I've been doing this for 24 years, remember? And so what I want you to do is take one piece of paper, and if there's like 1, 2, or maybe even 3 things that I say today that you're like, I really want to remember that and I want to learn more about it, and then put that piece of paper right, and I've done this, put it right by your computer in a space that you know that you'll see it, and then you'll dig into it more and look at more information. Okay, so weight stigma. I think everybody knows what weight stigma is, but it's weight bias or weight discrimination. Shame, judgment, inequalities, or stereotypes based on people's individual size or body. And so the origins of weight stigma, this is not a complete list, but it's with media and social media especially, it's just run rampant lately, but also just societal pressure regarding obesity. And so one thing I wanted to mention about obesity is that we can talk about obesity. It's a medical term, right? But we can use obesity differently. Instead of saying an obese person, we could say a person with obesity. And then also when you're talking with clients, not calling them obese because it's triggering, and we'll talk more about that later. But anyway, so it's the media portrayal, and then also just the pressure regarding obesity, and it comes from healthcare, it comes from our professions, all healthcare professions, wellness, fitness industry, and then the culture blaming the individual for the obesity. And I really liked that Lindy and Christina had the social determinants of health, because that's one of the things I'll be talking about too. That's a contributing factor. And then also it seems that there's this general belief that somebody with obesity is lazy or has a lack of willpower and discipline, but we can look at the science behind this and know that that's not necessarily the case. So first I wanted to talk a little bit about the harm that's associated with weight stigma, because no matter if you disagree with me or agree with me, if you think that, okay, somebody who has obesity, that's awful, it's going to cause chronic disease, and that's fine if you believe that, but I think we can all agree that telling somebody they need to lose weight isn't going to help them lose weight. There's lots of research to support that. Long-term weight loss is not sustainable. And part of it is how it's being taught to people, and this whole thinking of that health and weight is one cookie cutter ideal, and that's part of it. So weight stigma actually will hinder communication with the client, and also contributes to chronic disease. And also some of the research, and I'll give you those studies, will indicate that if you have this bias and weight stigma, and it actually increases their caloric consumption, and they gain weight and have decreased motivation to exercise, and they won't come back to the doctor. And so part of this problem is our culture is obsessed with weight and food. We have huge diet culture in our world, and that is a huge contributing factor to it. And if you think about it, so we're telling people you need to eat less and you need to lose weight. And so if they're not eating when they're hungry and they're not nourishing their bodies correctly, our body's job is to tell us, okay, you need to eat because you don't want to starve. And so of course you can get food cravings. You're going to have the hormonal changes that then will drive you to eat. And so it's not a willpower thing. It's actually our bodies doing what they were made to do, is not starve to death, right? So also other areas of harm would be then the dysfunctional eating and eating disorders. And then also the delay in diagnoses of somebody that actually has an underlying problem, or they don't come back to the doctor because of the weight stigma. There's the psychological and emotional damage, dangers of yo-yo dieting, body composition changes, and then the slowed metabolism. And weight stigma occurs from many areas, and this is just, there was Weight Stigma Awareness Week in September, and this is just one of the visuals from there about where weight stigma can occur. So I did a simple Google search and on obesity. I just put obesity, and that's what came up. It shows headless people, and then people eating large amounts of food sloppily, and then also engaging in sedentary activity. So, I mean, this is also part of the problem. So some examples of weight stigma in healthcare. There's examples of chairs. I'm noticing the chairs here don't have arms. That's great, because there's some places where there are arms on the chairs, and the chair is a regular or even narrow, I'm going to move this because I'm going to knock it down, chair. And so not everybody can fit in those chairs. Same thing with plane seats. Notice the artwork in the places where you work. I've noticed in some gyms and some physical therapy places, all you see are muscular or thin bodies. And then also look at the reading material that's in the waiting rooms to see if there's any weight stigma there. Once you're aware of this, you just can't unsee it. And the gowns, are the gowns big enough for everybody? Do they have gowns that are going to fit larger people? And then also blood pressure cuffs. Is there an extra large blood pressure cuff? Because I saw a video one time of demonstrating this, and there wasn't a blood pressure cuff big enough, and then the nurse yelled down the hall asking, where's the extra large blood pressure cuff? And just so things like that, thinking about that. And so just wanted to also talk about weight stigmatizing language. So overweight or underweight and obesity, and I know some of these are medical terms, you can't get around that. But if you're talking to the person or talking just in general, I always put the person first, and then second, say the obesity, or say higher or lower weight is better. Someone living in a larger body, person of size. If somebody is, quote unquote normal or average size, you can say middle of the road. And then you notice I have fat on both sides of the chart here, and that's for a couple reasons. So fat really should not have any reaction in us any differently than muscle, but it does. It's stigmatizing to people because we've made it that way. What I can compare this with is the word queer. When I was growing up, that was a very stigmatizing word for the gay community, but they reclaimed the word queer, and it's not stigmatizing anymore. And so there's a group of advocates that are trying to reclaim the word fat. So that's why I might say fat and be talking about fat, and it's not, that's just the language I've grown accustomed to using now. And so hopefully one day fat doesn't have to be on both sides of the coin. And then also combating childhood obesity and the obesity epidemic. If you really think about what that's saying, Are we really trying to get rid of the obesity, or are we trying to get rid of the problem that's causing the obesity? Have you noticed that there's a much bigger problem than the obesity, but we keep harping on the obesity, but we can't just keep treating the symptom, or we're never going to get rid of the problem. Okay, so I would like you to take a minute by yourself, write down some examples you can think of from the facility where you work in that could lend to weight stigma. And then at your table, I'd like you to share what you've noticed, and then come up with maybe an idea of how you can speak out against it or fix the problem. I won't give you too much time on this, just because maybe it's a conversation you can then just take out into the hallways later too. So, okay, on your mark, set, go.
We all work in different types of environments, and so it's helpful to get with other professionals and kind of brainstorm out some things. So we can continue this conversation after, if there's time, but also please carry it out into the hallways as well. So a question I have for you all is, can you really control your weight? I mean, you can do things that seems like, you can control your weight, but what do you have to do to really keep it there, right? We have less control of our actual weight than we think we do. There's genetics involved, there's biology involved, and so we know that if we try to restrict too much and eat too little, and we're not nourishing ourselves with adequate food to make us feel like we've had enough to eat or satisfied, and there's a lot of things that go into that. Like I said earlier, our bodies are wired to want more food, and our different hormones then will cause us to crave and then eventually to eat, so we don't starve to death. So, and starvation occurs even in a larger body, and I think that's something we really need to tune into and think about, because how many times have you been with a physician or somebody comes in and they're a person with obesity, and they haven't been eating for a long time, and they're losing weight. How often have you heard another healthcare professional say, oh, that doesn't matter, they have a lot, they can live off their fat? No, that's not what happens. You also can live off your muscle. And a research study I'm going to talk about in a few minutes here demonstrates that. Okay, we all know that diets don't work long term, right? And so, I guess it's right now I'm talking about this study. Has anyone read the Fothergill study, Biggest Loser? Anyone not heard of the Biggest Loser? I think it's making a comeback, but it's that TV show where people lose lots of weight really quickly because they're exercising for several hours a day and then also not eating a lot. So anyway, this study looks at these participants 6 years later and looks at their lean muscle mass. And so before they started the study, and then 6 years later, their muscle mass is lower than when before they started the study, or started the program and lost all that weight. Okay, so what do we know if you don't have muscle? Your metabolism is going to slow down. So these individuals, 6 years out, their metabolism is slower. Then the other thing, their leptin levels are slower. And so we know that means that then they're always kind of feeling hungry. So their metabolism is slower, they're always hungry. What's going to happen? They're going to gain weight. And they're also not exercising several times a day, and they're also not eating what's provided for them. So of course they're going to gain weight. They were set up for failure. But what happens? Everyone blames the individual. Oh, they just don't have enough willpower. Well, that's not the way it goes. Wanted to talk a little bit, not very much, about weight loss research. It is flawed, and there's a couple things that I wanted to say about that. Is that number one, the research is not long enough. We don't, 5 years out, we're not seeing what's happening. And so that's part of the problem. And the reason for that's hard research to do, and it costs a lot of money. And the other problem too is there's a big dropout rate. And so the people that are going on this weight loss diet are going to drop out. And so then if that information isn't looked at the end, the results are going to be skewed, right? And then there's also a huge publication bias, and that's, even the scientific community is not immune to weight bias, and part of that is because it's implicit, it's been ingrained in our heads. And so it skews what you're going to report and how it's interpreted as well. So, those of you in the audience that are feeling uncomfortable with what I'm saying, and you're thinking, but isn't fat unhealthy? Isn't it unhealthy to be fat? Well, let's look at weight and chronic disease. We know that it's an association. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a cause. And also, being healthy is not a moral issue, but we've created it into one that if you're not fit and you're not healthy, you don't deserve respect. No, you don't need to be treated well. And that's completely not right. Treating people with higher weights with disrespect or shame, thinking that you're going to make them healthier, is not working. It's making them actually less healthy. They're not going to want to come back to the healthcare professional that weight shamed them. So let's think about it this way. So traditional weight loss education and counseling is ineffective long term. We know that. There's more to just educating somebody as to why, educating somebody on what to eat and what not to eat and all that kind of stuff. There's more to it. So what is it? Well, let's think about weight loss or weight in general, weight gain even, as a symptom. Let's think of it as a symptom in our PS statements instead of the problem or the etiology. Because what happens with symptom-based treatment? It's effective right away, but in the long term, it's not going to be effective. And we know why, because we're not targeting the etiology. It's important to treat the symptoms. This is another big reason why eating disorder treatment isn't effective long term for some people, is because maybe their treatment stopped once the weight was restored. And that's only the start of it. So if you think of it that way, it's helpful. So let me give you an example. And I'm borrowing this example from Jessica Setnick, which is a registered dietitian who specializes in eating disorders. So let's say 3 people came into your office and they all 3 were coughing. And so you're like, just give all 3 of them a cough drop. So the first person quit coughing, the second person didn't quit coughing, and the third person died. So come to find out, the first person just had a tickle. so the cough drop helped soothe their throat. Fine, they were better. The second person had tuberculosis, and so the cough drop wasn't going to cure them. Third person was already choking on a cough drop, and so that's why they died. And so I was telling my husband this as I was practicing, and I go, hey, 3 people come into your office. He goes, is this a joke? And I'm like, oh, no, it's not, but it sounds like one. And I'm a horrible joke teller, you guys. I was so worried that when I was setting this up, I was going to completely bomb the ending. But, so, my point in telling you that is, number one, all things can't be treated the same with the symptoms. You don't get the same treatment or intervention with everything just because the symptom is the same. The other point is that if you don't know what the etiology is and you're not targeting the etiology, you're not going to have long-term success. Okay, so here is the research to support what I'm saying. If you go to this link under the intuitive eating link, there's 40 plus research articles. And the one I kind of like is the 2015 one because it has a little summary, so you can kind of read it first to decide if you want to go through and read the whole thing. But they also have an updated version on there now with, since 2018. It doesn't have the sweet little blurb, it's a condensed version, but it has more up-to-date information. This is where I also got the intuitive eating certification. And then also, anybody heard of Linda Bacon? Raise your hand. Yay! Students should have raised their hand. This link here, oh no, not this link, different link. Actually, if you go to her website, she actually has a doctorate degree in 3 different areas: exercise physiology, nutrition, and the last one has escaped me. She's one of the heavy hitters at Health at Every Size, which we'll talk about in a minute. Tons of resources for you, also for clients. So let's back up and think about the symptom-based treatment again. So what would happen if we thought of weight gain as a sign or symptom in our PS statements instead of the problem or the etiology or even the goal? How would your intervention change? I'm not sure what that was. That was almost like a drum roll. Okay, so and what do we know about symptom-based treatment? That, okay, if you just reduce the symptoms, doesn't mean that you're going to get at the etiology, doesn't mean that you're going to get to the core of the problem, so the problem continues. So, what would happen if we gave the same recommendations to our thin clients or middle of the road clients versus people of size? What would happen? We wouldn't have weight stigma, which is causing harm. We wouldn't have this obsession with the diet culture. And think about this. I have a colleague who, her mom, she said this in a presentation one time that her mom, who is a person of size, she was complaining about her back hurt. And all the siblings, Mom, you just need to lose some weight. There's nothing wrong. Even the dietitian that I'm telling you about thought that. Come to find out, she actually had kidney cancer. And her treatment was delayed because even the doctor was like, just lose some weight, it'll help, with your back. So treatment is delayed if the first thing you go to is lose some weight. And I've heard many examples where weight is the first thing that the physician or healthcare professional goes to. So what I wanted to give you all today is lots of resources. So you can go out tomorrow, even tonight if you want to, and work with a client I have these worksheets you can use that are weight neutral approaches, and also specific to diabetes at the end too. So let's talk a little bit about health at every size, because this is kind of misunderstood, even in the healthcare profession. It is acceptance of natural diversity in body, shape, and size, and it acknowledges that diets don't work and can be harmful. And it is not weight-centered, it is health-centered, the first word, health, at every size. And it recognizes the importance of mindful eating, intuitive eating, so this all kind of fits in together. But it also talks about all the factors of health. Oftentimes, all we think about is physical health, and what does physical health look like? Health at every size talks about the social aspects, the emotional, and the mental. Sometimes people misunderstand what health at every size is, saying that people, no matter what their size, can be healthy. Well, that's not what it's saying at all. It's just saying that there can be health in many different bodies,
and it can look different in many different people. My health is not going to be the same as another person's. This other person that I know, he has MS, and so, but he has healthy lifestyles, and he is healthy for his version of healthy. So I think we have a very narrow idea or framework sometimes of what health means. And this is the video I was telling you about with Linda Bacon. I didn't want to show it today because it's long, it's like 7 or 8 minutes, but I really encourage you to go watch that. It's very helpful for, discussing, okay, can you be fat and fit and still be healthy? And so it talks about how sometimes people are thin and they're not fit. So just recognizing the differences there, and that fitness is a key factor in protective health. Okay, so these are the resources I wanted to talk about. So you might see that first one there. So this actually is not written by a dietitian, not written by a healthcare professional or anything, and I normally don't recommend those things, but I actually read it off of a recommendation of a good friend. And it's really good, and it's entertaining, and it's very much like intuitive eating, but it also really dispels kind of some of the, this person did her research, I tell you, when she wrote this book, but it dispels some of those myths of diet culture and having to look and eat a certain way. So I would recommend that to clients before I would recommend intuitive eating. But then I would recommend intuitive eating as their second book that they read or listen to. I love to listen to books, especially nonfiction, and so I always will throw that out there for people. And so intuitive eating has been edited, since the first version. Some good edits have gone on, but that has more structure than the EFIT diet. And then the intuitive eating workbook is really good. It really kind of closes the loop with the gentle nutrition part, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then this book here, these are where I'm going to show you some of the activities that you can use, and as a registered dietitian, it says right on the bottom, you can go ahead and photocopy these. And so some of these activities are in your handout, so be sure to download the handouts and photocopy them and use them with your clients. Now I lost my clicker. Okay, so I'm assuming most people have heard of intuitive eating. Well, now if I ask you if you haven't, no one's going to raise their hand after I phrased it like that. How many of you have read the book Intuitive Eating? Okay, how many of you use intuitive eating principles in your practice? Awesome. There's been a recent research study, I think it's about a year old now, that 75% of registered dietitians use some sort of intuitive eating in their practice. The principles that are highlighted here: reject the diet mentality, honor your hunger, respect your body, honor your health with gentle nutrition. Those are the ones I'm going to talk a little bit about, how you can talk with your patients or clients about it, and then also some activities you can use. So there's no way you can probably see that in the back, and I see that there's some formatting changes on here, which was not on my computer. But anyway, there's several research studies listed on the bottom you can look at too. That's looking at the diet mentality and the effect it has on health and weight recycling, and then also intuitive eating and the resources with that. It was really bothering to look at that slide with it all messed up, so I just had to go to the next one. So the first principle in intuitive eating is diets don't work. And we know that traditional weight loss counseling is ineffective long-term usually. And then, it works for some people obviously, but the majority it does not work for. So we need a sustainable framework. And something that I teach and 100% believe and works is honoring genetic diversity, using non-diet weight neutral approaches, and then bringing the focus on eating and moving and exercising into a more normal state. To eat and exercise to feel good, to feel strong, to feel healthy, instead of to burn calories and to lose weight. And so this research study here by Berry, 2013, shows that fitness surpasses fatness. So it also shows that people can be at a higher weight and be fit and still have good health outcomes. BMI is an awful indicator of health. It's not evidence-based. Yes, it's used all the time because it's quick and easy, but just be aware of, I think everyone kind of knows that. And so behaviors that have more impact on your health than your weight are these: food choice, physical activity, drinking or smoking, and then Lindy and Christina set me up well here with social determinants of health, which are your socioeconomic status, race, education level, access to health care, stigma, social support, public safety, and literacy. So all of those factors are way more of an indicator of your health than your weight. Yet we put so much focus on the weight that's creating this huge diet culture. So the first activity in your little workbook here, in your handouts from this book, is, I don't have my glasses on, so this might be a struggle, debunking diets. And so basically, you talk with your client about, so what are the positive things you've been experiencing with your dieting? Try to get out, because they're following this diet for some reason, so they list out all the positives of their dieting, and then you talk about the negatives that they might be experiencing with, like, I'm always hungry, I'm crabby, I tend to regain the weight, whatever. And so by the end of it, hopefully you can guide them, because here's the thing, as dietitians, we're educators, we are like, oh, I know the problem and this is what you have to do to fix it. I can remember, especially as a young dietitian, wanting to be like, oh, I know how to fix this, and then just tell them, well, that doesn't work, unfortunately. And so using motivational interviewing style counseling, trying to get the client to figure it out on their own. So getting them to figure it out on their own that, oh gosh, this diet really isn't working because I've been on this diet 4 times and it keeps having the same outcome. So getting them to figure that out on their own, guiding them to do that. And showing that I have too many things I'm trying to hold on to, my glasses, my papers, the clicker. Diets don't work and lead to binging and obsessing about food and weight. So if you can help them tie that together, that would be perfect. So the second principle of intuitive eating is honor your hunger. And so the premise is keep your body fed to prevent ravenous hunger. That doesn't mean you have to, graze and eat all day long. But what I'm talking about is to, helping your client understand that, okay, I need to actually eat. And because if I don't eat, then I'm going to get really hungry, and then everything is going to go out of control, and then I'll overeat. And trying to help them realize that it's not their fault. So anytime I can point out, like if a client would come in and say, yeah, I ate just a piece of toast with peanut butter for breakfast, a salad for lunch. I came home from work and I ate chips, then I went on to ice cream, and then, just kept going on. And I said, anytime you can point out that it's their body doing the right thing, I would say something like, oh wow, that's your body saying, gosh, I didn't eat enough earlier today, and so now it's just like everything is going out the window. And because that's our body's job, is to keep us from starving, and so that's what's going on there. It's not that they have lack of willpower. So controlling food intake is not how our bodies were wired. I'm sure I could ask many people in here how you feel our bodies were created. And it doesn't matter, however you feel like our bodies were created, they weren't created in order to micromanage our food. They actually, when we were born intuitive eaters. We ate when we were hungry, we stopped before we were too full. And so somewhere along the lines, those cues got messed up. And so, but that's a whole other topic, which I'm not going to talk about today. But so anyway, avoid micromanaging your body, helping your client see that you don't need a Fitbit to find out how many calories you burn. So then you know you can punch in on your app how many calories you can eat. It doesn't work that way because our bodies aren't machines. Calories in does not equal calories out, even though that's what I probably learned in the 90s. I can't really remember. But anyway, our bodies actually can handle more food than we think they can, and I'll explain that in a second. And it's also a myth that we should be eating the smallest amount of food possible. Have you ever noticed that? It's like we don't want to be hungry. We want to eat as little as we can and still go on about our merry way.
And if you notice people out in the community too, is they don't want to be hungry. Well, the goal is not to make hunger go away. The reason we have hunger is so we don't die, right? So we don't starve to death. So the book, the EFIT book, this is a quote from there, which I think is, I love it. And also, I think it's a good thing to, you can tell your patients about it. And also, physicians, nursing, whoever. Because an appetite is a sign of health and a functioning metabolism, having an appetite or wanting to eat is not weak, it's being alive. And it is never going to go away. And if it does, go to your doctor because you might be dying. I think that's why I like this book so much. It's just so funny. I don't know, I think that's funny. Maybe I have dark humor. So what happens when we eat extra? I think we all know this, but talking to your client about it, your patient, actually is very helpful. So you say, let's say we had Thanksgiving dinner and you ate more than you normally do. Well, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to have longer satiety because you probably have a little extra fat, a little extra protein. You're not going to be as hungry at the next meal. You probably aren't going to eat a snack. And so your body just figures it out on its own if you listen to it. However, this is the problem. This is what goes on in our heads. Oh my gosh, I ate so much. I'm not going to be able to eat tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm just going to eat a small salad and absolutely no sweets. And you set yourself up for failure. You're micromanaging it. And then you get so hungry, it results in a binge. So helping your clients realize that, oh, okay, big deal. I ate too much. I'm just going to probably eat less. Maybe not even eat a snack because I'm not going to feel as hungry. So helping them tune into those hunger and satiety cues. So, and then I also talk about, well, what happens if you don't eat enough? You're still hungry, and all you can think about is food. Some people dream about food. You have sugar and carbohydrate cravings, and then depending on how interested your client is, you can always tell them, well, this is why we do have sugar and carbohydrate cravings, and get into the science of it. Your metabolism slows down because our bodies always think we're starving, and then you eat more snacks, and then there's a binge on the horizon. So intuitive eating has a nice little intuitive scale of hunger and satiety. 0 is ravenous, whereas 10 is like, I ate so much. We'll go with Thanksgiving dinner that I'm just miserable and full. So if that's something that works well for your clients, go for it. But I also think it's sometimes can be treated more like a diet using that chart. So you just have to kind of figure that out a little bit with your client and what their tendencies might be. You also could just say, well, what's it feel like when you've had enough food? And you really get down to the basics of it. The food doesn't taste as good as the first bite. You might start to feel your stomach sensations of fullness. You might start numbing feelings and eating unconsciously. And then challenge your patients or your clients to give themselves permission to eat without even being hungry and see what happens. I've had a client with Mountain Dew. She came into me not ever wanting to drink Mountain Dew again. And so I had her plan for the next day. I said, I want you to have one Mountain Dew, but I want you to have it when you really want it and when you're thirsty. And she came back the next time and said that, well, she wasn't nearly as fun if she had it planned in there, and it just didn't even have the same effect. And so you can do the same thing with food with people. So the summary then for this principle is the more true hunger is denied, the more intense the food cravings and obsessions are. Denying true hunger leads to binging and then those deafness to internal cues. And that's kind of where we lose it, the use it or lose it type mentality is if you're constantly under eating and not satisfying your hunger and then constantly overeating, you lose those cues. Okay, so the next activity in your book is, and when you go back and look at these slides, which I know you all are going to, it'll tell you right on the top what page number it is. And this is a hunger and fullness activity. And it's really nice because not everybody experiences the same hunger cues. Some people actually feel like, growling in their stomach. Some people don't. Some people get headaches and are irritable. And so defining what does it feel like to you when you're hungry? What does it feel like when you're just satisfied? And then also, what are your fullness cues? But keep in mind that somebody who has not been listening to these cues may have lost them, and it might take some time to get back. And so it's working on establishing, helping them establish regular meal patterns and that sort of thing, so their hunger and fullness cues return. And so that this is a good activity to use with them and reuse with them. So respect your body is another principle of intuitive eating. And so respecting and accepting your body doesn't mean disregard it. So a lot of times individuals will say, you know, I just can't accept my body like this at all. So then you just reframe it and say, well, let's talk about respect. Everybody, no matter what their size, deserves to eat. They deserve to wear clothes that fit them well and to feel good about themselves. They deserve to be touched in ways that feel good. I mean, it's just the basic needs that need to be met. And so that's, if you can get people to wrap their mind around that, to respect their body, then okay, you know, I do deserve to eat. I deserve to move, and I deserve to feel good. You don't have to like every part of your body to respect it, and you don't have to eat perfectly to respect it either. But it's hard to reject the diet mentality if you're unrealistic about your body shape, you're overcritical, and it's hard to escape the body torture when the whole world is following this. We live in such a world of diet culture and weight stigma, it's hard to get away from it. So one thing you can definitely do is stop the body negativity talking. So Winnie the Pooh on body image, if you don't believe me. Winnie the Pooh wore crop tops with no pants and ate his favorite food, and he loved himself too. And so this reminds me of my little girl. When I just thought, those cute little rolls and so chubby, I just love it. So this beach can get whatever body I give it. So Normal Eating by Ellen Satter. So how many people know of Ellen Satter? Okay, good. I'm not going to read through the Normal Eating by Ellen Satter since you all know it mostly. But this is something to go over with your clients, and because it really helps them understand what normal eating is. Because as dietitians, I think people always say to us, oh, you're going to eat that brownie, or you're going to eat that. And so it really helps them understand that the things that they've been hearing and all the diet culture is just kind of polluting their brains. And so this helps normalize eating for them. So the best and absolute favorite of principles of intuitive eating for me is honor your health with gentle nutrition, and it's the very last principle of intuitive eating for a reason. So if it were first, it is more likely to be treated as a diet. And so you kind of have to work through, honoring your hunger and respecting your body and all those sorts of things before you get to actually nourishing your body. But I actually read the last chapter before. I do that with books too. I'll read the last page before I finish it. I did that with this book too. But anyway, the workbook of intuitive eating actually really helps close this loop. Because when I read intuitive eating, I wasn't happy with the last chapter of the nutrition part. Because I'm like, I'm a dietitian. I want to tell people, okay, these foods will help make you feel good, will help nourish your body, that sort of thing. And so this last chapter in the workbook actually does that, because it talks about interoceptive awareness. Because sometimes intuitive eating is misunderstood that you can eat whatever you want all of the time, whatever your taste buds require. Okay, well, it's not that, and this will help people understand that. And so interoceptive awareness represents how food actually feels in your body. And so, especially somebody with like diabetes, if they have a high blood sugar, you can really talk about what does it feel like when you have a high blood sugar. Or even somebody that if you eat too much fat or something that you normally don't eat, you just feel lethargic and gross. For me, it's any type of blizzard at DQ. I just feel miserable after that. And so now I don't even want one anymore. So that's what interoceptive awareness is. Like, how does that food actually feel in your body, and do you really want to choose to eat that? So it goes beyond what your taste buds crave. So it's necessary to talk about playtime food, and I'm only using the word playtime food because that's what the book uses in intuitive eating. That is so weird to me. I would never say, oh, what are you going to have for your playtime food today? I feel like I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I don't say playtime food.
I say something like treat foods or something to that effect. It's what most people call junk food, but we don't want to call it junk food because that has a negative to it as well. So anyway, playtime food then is any type of food that will offer you taste and maybe just calories. It doesn't have nutrients that are going to nourish your body or help you perform in your sport is what I tell, the athletes, that sort of thing. It lacks in vitamins and minerals, fiber. So my example here, we'll only check the time, see if I have time for my devil's cake example. I do. So my husband one night was like my husband cooks. He cooks, he cleans, he fixes my car, and he sews. And you probably say, oh, you're going to see him tomorrow, by the way, because he's actually coming to the lunch. But anyway, don't tell him I told the story. Actually, it's more about me. So he was making devil's food cake, and it was late at night, and I was tired. I wanted to go to bed, but it smelled so good. And so I'm like, I'll just eat it for breakfast. It won't be a big deal. And I thought, and which, to me, I'm fine with eating devil's cake for breakfast, because that's an example of playtime food. Do I eat devil's cake for breakfast all the time? No. And it was like, oh, wow, this is really good. Except, by the middle of the day, I was like, oh man, I don't feel so good. This is not. I probably won't eat devil's food cake for breakfast again. Maybe I'll save it for maybe lunch next time. So that's just an example of treat foods are everywhere. We need to teach our patients and clients how to incorporate them in, even if they have diabetes, even if they have cardiovascular disease, because they're going to eat them anyway. So let's teach them how they can fit in a more balanced way. Okay, so just a summary then of the gentle nutrition principle is, this is how I teach it. I say, primarily choose your foods based on 3 things: health, how it feels in your body, and then also the taste. And that's not in any particular order. When you talk about the health portion, it could be somebody with diabetes. Okay, what types of food are going to help nourish your body, help you feel good for diabetes? Could be cardiovascular disease. Whatever it is, you tweak it to that. And then also help them figure out the interoceptive awareness piece of it. Okay, how does this feel? Does it make me feel lethargic? Does it make me feel gassy? Does it make me feel gross? Does it make me feel good and energized, okay? And then taste is the third one, because if it doesn't taste good to them, they're not going to continue to do it. So primarily choosing food based off of those 3 criteria, and then allowing for some treat foods, and then teaching them how to incorporate those treat foods. Okay, so the next activity then is to help somebody increase their food variety. And what you do, I was going to actually pull it up on the computer for you, but that probably would take me way too long. And you do have the handouts. You go through the food groups. Yes, the food groups. Remember the food guide pyramid? Oh my God, I love the food guide pyramid. I swear, I like it. I'm sad it's gone. But anyway, it's your basic food groups. Your meat, your grains, your vegetables, your fruits, your dairy. And you do kind of like a food recall, food frequency thing. What types of vegetables do you like? And so they'll tell you what types of vegetables. Have you ever tried this? Have you ever tried this? Oh, that sounds great. You decide together. Maybe one vegetable they're going to try this week. And then you help them build their plate. You just draw a plate and then, and I have another example specific to diabetes here in a second. And you can use this along with that. And I will show you that one coming up. So I wanted to mention briefly, just even changing your language that you use, this is all part of motivational interviewing with clients, is instead of saying things, you must, you should, it's important because, here's what you need to do. And I found out this works well with kids. I use this language with my kids and they listened much better if I would say, have you considered this? You might do this, that sort of thing. However, it does not work with husbands because they say, what therapy crap are you using on me now? Yes. I don't know, that's my husband anyway. Maybe yours is different. But just changing your language can go a long ways. All right, so now with the last few minutes we have, I wanted to give you some examples of how you can use, oh, Josh, I'm putting it over here. I was going to sit up by the computer and he yelled at me earlier. Specific examples for diabetes. Okay, so first you need some research and some evidence to go back to and read on your own. But because here's another area too, where we talk about if you just lose so much weight, your blood sugars are going to be better, your A1Cs are going to be better, right?
Well, there's limited evidence to support that weight loss improves long-term. If you don't believe me, you can go ahead and look here, and then I have more resources at the end as well. However, if we promote behavior changes, physical activity, the results are great, regardless if they lost weight. They might lose weight, that might be a symptom, right? But not necessarily, but regardless of weight, they have beneficial outcomes on A1Cs, lipids, blood pressure, and like I said, that's irrespective of weight. One of your handouts entitled Why a Weight Neutral Approach is Essential in Diabetes Care. I urge you to look at that. And again, there's many references there to go back and read about the research. So, let's get that one. Okay, this first one. So this link will take you right to this little page here, and that's too small for me to see, so I have mine printed out. So this one is Mindful Eating for Diabetes, and it's a very useful assessment tool. And what you do is you go through and ask them questions. Why did you eat what you eat? And it goes through all the different things, and then it says, when do you eat? What do you eat? How do you eat? Do you eat fast? Do you eat while you're watching TV? How much do you eat? And then where? And so it's a whole list of questions, and you don't have to just like badger one after the other. You have a conversation about it, right? And you gain a lot of good assessment information. The next one is tips for mindful meal planning using the diabetes plate. And that's the one I was talking about to use in conjunction with that other activity when you're helping them build their plate. But you're going to have a lot of people come in and say, just tell me what to eat, tell me what to do. And so I'm a big believer in that doesn't work because we don't know how people eat and what they like to eat. So if they can help do it with you, you teach them the skills and then tweak it a little bit, you know, with thinking of, again, remember the nutrients, how the taste is important to them and how that feels in their body, they're going to continue to do it. And then this little handout here is nice because it helps track their blood sugars, and it also is going to help with their development of their interoceptive awareness, connecting when they eat foods, what are their blood sugars doing and how does that make me feel. And then there's also a section on here to rate their hunger. So lots of good information they can collect, and then if you look at it together, a lot of good opportunity for education. And then this was developed by a registered dietitian, and if you go to this link, it has gentle nutrition, not just for diabetes, but for lots of different diseases, hypertension, renal disease, you name it. And they're all kind of set up in the same way, where it will give you the pathophysiological reasons for the disease, and then some gentle nutrition suggestions and other recommendations. So here are your resources for weight neutral diabetes counseling. And the Weight Neutral Diabetes Activities book is an online, if you just go to these links or if you just go to this website, will give you lots of opportunity to learn a lot more. And then there is a Weight Neutral for Diabetes Care webinars as well, and an assessment tool you can take. So let's think about what barriers exist in your practice to effectively use non-diet weight neutral approaches. And I'm not going to take time right now for you guys to discuss it, but I would love for you to discuss it together amongst yourselves, because I was having a conversation just earlier today about in bariatrics, if you're now working in bariatrics, what kind of barriers are you going to come up against there, where there's so much of weight loss is the focus, right? Most people, if you do private practice even, most people are going to come into you saying, I want to lose weight. But you don't want to say right off the bat that weight loss diets don't work. The research shows that you're going to gain the weight back. You don't want to say that. You just, we'll start working with them, but working on behavior change, and over time making them see that, oh, okay, let's kind of just get rid of this weight focus and work on these other things, and it's more sustainable. So, looking through my key points here, I'm not going to take the time to read through them, because what I wanted to leave you with a couple things. First, this is kind of neat. When somebody comes into you, wanting to lose weight and that sort of thing, and then after you've worked with them using, non-diet neutral approaches, some signs you're becoming an on-dieter. You forgot about that ice cream in the freezer. You eat vegetables with the olive oil and butter on them. Move your body in ways you enjoy. Eat a cookie without guilt or shame. You order a salad because that's what you really want, not just because you think you had to. One bite of cake can hit the spot, or a whole slice can hit that spot too. You don't think about food all day long. You don't see food as good or bad. You see, and I just want to talk briefly about that. We know that there are foods that are more nutrient dense than others, obviously, but getting people to think of them not as good or bad on an emotional plane is what I'm asking here, because that's the problem, is when we think, oh, we're a bad person because we ate a piece of cake. You can say no, thank you to the brownie if you know it won't feel good. It's kind of like my Blizzard. And you can say yes to the brownie if you want it. And I have said yes to the Blizzard, even though it's made me sick sometimes. And then you have wellness without the obsession. And so, see, I just want to show you lots of references here, so please go back and look at those. Go back through the slides for the links for more references. And what I wanted to leave you with is this. So, many of you might be weight neutral dietitians right now doing weight neutral approaches and that sort of thing. So, and which is great, and thank you for not causing, continued harm by weight stigma. But let me challenge you. When you see something, you say something. I had, and just a couple weeks ago, I think it was, I walked into the gym where I work out, and someone on a whiteboard had made this beautiful turkey, very nice, very artistic, took a long time to make this turkey, and then it says, work out more now so you can eat more later. I walked in and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So Alison, calm down. So I said, hi. I said, can you erase your sign? And they're like, these are just staff people, right? And they're like, oh, why, what's wrong? And then I explained it. I said, well, someone had an eating disorder previously. Seeing that sign would be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to work out a lot in order to eat, and here. And then I explained a little bit about legalizing eating. I said, and it contributes to our whole diet culture. And both of the people at the front desk, they're like, oh yeah, you're right, never thought about it that way. Erased the sign and made a new one. And I said, can you tweak that a little bit more so that we got the perfect sign that wasn't going to cause any harm to anybody? And then I went and did the workout, and then the personal trainer at the end of it says, okay, we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and this is where everybody loses their mind over the holidays, you guys. Coming up on Thanksgiving, oh my gosh, how many burpees is it gonna take to work out that pie? And I knew what was coming, and the whole time I'm looking at him, just shooting daggers, and I'm like, he's looking at me, didn't take the hint, because they know I'm very vocal there. They know my beliefs. And so then, of course, in front of everybody, I said, okay, it's okay, you can still eat that pie, it's once a year, and went on to my little education thing, which is annoying, so to do it everywhere. And then after class, I went and talked to him, and I said, okay, this is the reason why I said that. And he goes, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. I've done that before at other places too. And if you say it in a way that, because people aren't trying to harm you, right? And so if you approach it in a way that's not going to put them at the defense and it makes sense to them, I have never run into somebody saying, you are crazy, get out of my class. Maybe they do that after I leave, I don't know, but they don't ever do it to my face. So my challenge to you is look around you. If you're sitting in a place in a chair that has just arms that are that are closed, say something. If we don't say something, we're not going to change the culture. And so sometimes you have to pick and choose. Like on social media, I could be saying something constantly. And so, and I've said this to my students, I've said, follow puppies and dogs on Instagram because nothing ever goes wrong there. So I unfollow some people just because I can't constantly be trying to educate because you gotta take care of yourself too. But if you say something, see something, say something. That's my challenge. Let's make a greater impact. Let's go out there and help our clients with weight neutral, non-diet approaches and actually work on the etiology of what the problem is and not on the weight. So I actually have time for questions, I think. Maybe 3 minutes? Yes?
I'm curious, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What did your perfect sign say after you took down the turkey?
What did the perfect sign say?
Yeah, I want to know.
I don't even remember what they ended up putting, but the second thing they put had to do with, what was it? Because first one was eating, work out more now, so I can burn more later. It had something to do with burning calories, and so, but because the place I work out is huge on burning calories, like any place you go at a gym, it's always like, burn your calories, and I always try to be like, can't we just move for fun? And so, so the second one was about the burning calories, and I can't even remember, to be honest, what we ended up with, but anyway. Yes?
You read a lot about the intermittent fasting
Yes.
now. What do you tell people about that?
Oh gosh, I know. Well, this is what I say. I say anytime you're going to set up restrictions like that, you are potentially going to cause harm to yourself it's the mindset of, okay, if I'm going to only eat between this amount of time and this amount of time, it's just like, then you want to eat. That's like I can't do a fast hardly for a lab because I swear, just because they said you can't eat, but I want to eat, you just want to have coffee, it's kind of the same thing. And so I don't recommend it. I mean, there is some literature to support it, but I would like to see more long-term in just a regular client, not on cancer patients or anything like that. But I don't recommend it. And I do intermittently fast, and that's when I sleep. So I'm using that. Anyone else?
Would you speak to the importance of acknowledging thin privilege when you're working with clients who are in larger bodies?
Yes. Her question was, can you acknowledge thin privilege when you're working with clients? So yes, it's we all come to the table. See what I did there? With different privileges, and being able to acknowledge them. I have white privilege, I have thin privilege, I have financial privilege. When you have certain privileges, you look at things differently. You may not have experienced things other people experience. But that doesn't mean you can't be empathetic about it, and it doesn't mean you can't help be an activist and an ally. And so I have gotten pushback from people that say, well, what do you know? You're just a skinny white girl. Okay. And that's where you just have to be like, I do have those privileges and I can still be an ally. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you.